In the forward, I say, often as I was writing and revising this book about Robert Lowell, etc., the poets around him, I felt so impatient. It was taking so much time. I wanted to get back to what I thought of as, quote, my real work, my own creative writing. Then I realized that this book had become a part of my real work, living, loving, writing it down, and trying to make sense of it all. Now, I'm going to, let's see, there's some place where I talk about, if I can find, I talk about working on the book in a children's hospital. I might have called this book a labor of love, and so everything I do is a labor of love, actually, teaching, writing, whatever. I might have called this book a labor of love, for that is what it has been, a labor of love. I first started to write down some of my memories about Robert Lowell and his circle during a period when my oldest child, then 14 years old, was in a children's hospital. And I'll just say quickly that it was a ward full of children with different kinds of cancer and total body cast, not enough nursing staff, and parents trying to deal with it, and dealing with adolescents who were furious. And the parents would say, they'd say, well, why don't you take 20 minutes and, you know, and I'll take over dealing with your child. And I went to the parents' room, and some people did needlepoint or quilting, which they thought was soothing. But for me, I wrote down every topic. I thought, what's the happiest moment I can remember? Ah, yes, my time with Lowell. And I wrote down everything that I wanted to say. And I used in my own mind that spider outline that I told some of you, where you have your central topic. You don't necessarily have to have the hierarchy of what's important or not. You take a complete walk through the subject. Now, I think you probably need more of a regular outline. Okay. I wanted to write about episodic and sometimes simultaneous, sometimes simultaneous, like memory itself. I wrote in the brief interludes that were available to me at that time in the hospital family waiting areas, where, afraid and alone, I passed the days and the nights. Whenever I had a moment, I scribbled down memories of happier days. So I think that was extreme circumstances to write a book, and I spent a lot of time trying to make it look like, oh yeah, I wrote it in one go, but it never did work out that way. And then I'm going to read you just a little bit from the end, because it was always so, everything when I look back on it was so unexpected. I had wanted to go to California and be dirty and live in a pad and study with Allen Ginsberg. But I was at a missionary college, Oberlin, and I thought in this huge fellowship, but no way they were going to let me just go and live in a pad and be dirty, right? And so then I chose somebody, because I said won this huge fellowship, I chose somebody whose poetry I didn't understand, not one word, and I knew they didn't either. And I thought, you know, well, I'd read Adrienne Rich, where she has a poem called Living Together. I thought, oh, Boston, Sin City #2. If I can't go to San Francisco, you know, and have a lot of sex and be dirty and live in a pad, I can go to Boston. And I'll choose a poet that they won't even understand, so they won't say no. So I said, okay, I heard there was this poet, Robert Lowell, and he had written 2 completely incomprehensible books, Mills of the Kavanaghs and Lord Weary's Castle, all based on Calvinism, Jonathan Edwards and the Spider, you know, more missionary than missionary, more missionary even than Oberlin, where we had to go to chapel 3 times a day. I mean, it was a wonderful school. It's a completely different school now, but then it was heels and hose, 3 times a day and lights out and so forth. So, and I'm just going to read the end of this because there's a lot about women and the women's movement and how women were treated, Bishop also. And, when I wrote this book, everyone, it's interesting, everyone gave me permission because the only book that had been written about Lowell before had been Ian Hamilton's about how crazy he was. And so the whole family was thrilled that I was going to write about other aspects. Now, what's interesting is that new material has come out. And I'm doing 2 talks. I'm doing one on heartbreak in Sylvia Plath, because all of a sudden her daughter sent me all of this material. And then I'm doing one for the American Literature Association called What Happens When the Archives Are Open. And I'm very interested in that because the Bishop archives are open, and people that are my friends, who I know, like Megan Marshall, are going trampling in with their big feet on her sexual fantasies and what she doodled on her homework in the 6th grade. And I don't like it at all. And in this film that's being shown, there's a film of Elizabeth Bishop being shown at the Museum of Fine Arts next week. I say this. So I wrote the filmmaker say, I hope I don't look totally stupid, because I'm inviting everybody. But I say, wait a minute, some things are private. How do we decide? If you're a friend of somebody, you're already censoring what you're going to say anyway. And do you want some heffalump like Tom Travisano with big feet tromping on somebody's sexual fantasies aged 8? No, I mean, I don't, but other people. We're having a great round table of all the biographers of Lowell, Sexton, Plath, and Alice Quinn, Frank Bedard, everybody wants to be part of it because everyone, the biographers and the poets, has a stake in it. And I talk about surviving, and I'll just read a little bit from this, and then we'll move on to our own lives and how we're going to struggle with the same issues that these people struggled with. And, okay. Issues of violations, betrayal, and abuse remained at the heart of Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton's feelings of helplessness and rage. Plath and Sexton died in that emotional outpouring of raw pain, most rawly felt and uttered. We feel the power of their cry. But Adrienne Rich, Elizabeth Bishop, Stanley Kunitz, and Robert Lowell lived to learn to master pain, to progress beyond the raw outcry into integration and forgiveness, both of themselves and of others. And Maxine Kumin, one of the best poets, who was alive when I wrote this, one of the best poets of her generation, continued to grow and develop in her art quietly. The only poet who survived by being totally horrible, I have to say, is Derek Walcott.
Really?
Great poet, but a real prick.
Really?
Anyway,
It's so funny because
you
he seems so mannered when he speaks.
No,
Like very.
yes, right. And then he runs
Very
behind and he says,
reserved
oh my God, and he goes,